UK. Well, any successful harvest relies on pollinators, and there is, of course, global concern at the decline in pollinator numbers. Later this year, the government will be publishing its National Pollinator Strategy. The latest draft of this strategy has been criticised by a group of MPs who claim that government is too reliant on pesticide manufacturers for research into the impact of their own pesticides on bees and other pollinators. The Environmental Audit Committee is concerned about industry-funded research into neonicotinoids, where that research is contributing to debate around whether they should continue to be banned in the UK. Joan Walley chairs the committee.
Well, I think the most important thing is that we need to have a baseline. We need to know what is actually going on at the moment. There needs to be that monitoring. And then once we've got that, there needs to be the research. And I think that there is real concern that this research is being funded by the manufacturers, and it leads to all kinds of questions about transparency, about openness and about accountability. And we really think that this should be put in place if this research, this vital research, is going to be funded by the manufacturers.
But who should pay for it? What if, for example, the research was, the results were peer-reviewed, they were published in full? Because it's expensive to fund this sort of research, isn't it?
Well, it is. And interestingly, when we went out to visit the European Commission earlier this year, we were quite surprised to learn that the UK had actually rejected money that had been designated by the European Union. We were very surprised to hear that this Epilo B programme, albeit one which was due to be discontinued after the 2013-14 second round of surveys.
And what is that? Actually, and what is that programme?
That's money to fund research to actually look at the state of bees. And we were really surprised that government hadn't taken it up. But I think that the issue that you're raising is an important one. Yes, it's got to be paid for somehow or another. We would have hoped that there would have been that capacity inside DEFRA to actually fund this research. But if there isn't, and if it is being funded by the manufacturers, at the very least there should be a set of terms of reference, there should be openness, everything should be published, and there should be peer review, and we would expect government to put that in hand. Otherwise there will be concerns that there could be bias creeping into this.
Now, your report states that that DEFRA should use this final strategy to what you say, draw a line under the neonicotinoid ban by making it clear that the UK accepts the European assessments underpinning that ban. But it doesn't have to do that, though, does it? How confident are you that government will heed your recommendations?
Well, government has to respond to our detailed recommendations. It's important that it does so before this final version of the National Pollinator Strategy is signed off. And I personally would like to see a much more robust line from governments really stating that they accept the European ban in full, and that as a result they're looking much more towards integrated pest management, towards the CAP subsidies and everything else, to actually look at alternative ways of farming, and for the government to really move away from saying, rather than that it always needs unequivocal evidence, to actually adopting the precautionary principle when it comes to how we safeguard pollinators. And that's what I think the government should be doing.
Joan Walley, who chairs the Environmental Audit Committee. DEFRA says they did apply for the Epilo B programme for 2013-2014 funding, but approval from the EU came back too late for the British beekeeping season. Well, the Crop Protection Agency, which represents the plant science industry in the UK, including Syngenta and Bayer, doesn't agree with the committee's recommendations. Chief Executive Officer Nick von Westenholz told me it didn't matter who pays for it as long as research is independent.
It's in the interest of the industry, obviously, that there is an independent assessment of the impact of their products. I mean, the industry stands by the health and safety of these products, so it's very happy to allow independent researchers to look at it because they're confident that they'll be vindicated. The fact is also needs to be made that the government simply isn't in a position at the moment to provide funds to do this research. So if industry isn't, then the question is who will pay for it?
However, if the European Commission has seen fit to bring in a moratorium on the use of neonicotinoids, some would argue, well, why isn't Britain towing that line with the rest of Europe?
Well, thankfully, the UK government is sticking to its principles of evidence-based policy making and is seemingly saying that they're not going to back a policy decision for which there isn't evidence. And it was the European Commission themselves that recently admitted the only reason they took the decision they did on the 2-year moratorium was because it was the only factor of a very multifactorial problem that they actually had any power at all to regulate.
Some would say that it looks like the UK government doesn't really take this seriously.
I think they take it very seriously, and the industry takes their responsibility to the environment very seriously. The point is that there is a challenge to produce enough food to feed a growing population, and that requires reliance on technology and use of a number of different tools in combating pests, and that needs to be balanced with the need to protect our environment so that farmers can continue to do so in future generations. And to do that, we need to make sure that we base our decisions on evidence, on science, and we don't get swayed by often misleading emotive campaigns.
Nick von Westenholz from the Crop Protection Agency. And that's it from us for today.